everybody. Well, as you can see, I have a little different setup today than normal. I'm not at home. I am fabulous Chattanooga, Tennessee with the amazing Amanda Cox.
Thanks so much for coming this way, and I'm so excited that we get to chat.
So this is the first time we've met in person. We've been online friends for a little while. So you may not know Amanda, maybe you do, but I want to start out with just turning it over to you and let you share a little bit with people about who you are and your family, just anything you want us to know about you.
Right. So I am from Chattanooga. Kind of been my home my entire life, and I really love it here. I am married, and we have 3 kids. And we love to just explore the great outdoors, and Chattanooga gives us a lot of opportunity for that. Um, so I'm homeschooling mom. So between, I'm writing in the morning and homeschool during the day. And that's just kind of like how we run our life. We're all together and we're all adventuring all the time.
Yeah. So I grew up here in Chattanooga and I saw a picture on one of your posts. You were on a boat on the lake. Well, we call it the lake, it's the Tennessee River,
Right.
but up on the lake. And I said, I think I know that bridge. So I'm messaging her and are you the bridge that goes to Dayton? And so it's kind of cool to be able to be here. We're here visiting family on vacation. So I said, hey, let's do this in person. So I hope you will enjoy this as much as I know we will, getting to chat together. So first, I just wanted to ask you to share a little bit about your writing journey and how that came about, because I know before writing, you're a counselor, right? Maybe
Right.
do you still do counseling?
I don't have so much of the counseling role anymore. There's some different mentorship opportunities that I help out with, but not formally counseling. Home with the kids, homeschooling and writing are pretty much my full schedule most of the time. But yeah, I grew up, loved reading. I read everything that I could get my hands on. Even attempted to write some stories as a kid, but it was one of those things that was just sort of in the background. I was really more a reader than a writer, in my opinion. I didn't see myself as a storyteller. So as life went on, I ended up pursuing a degree in counseling, and did some counseling through church ministry, did counseling through different organizations. But then when my second child was about to be born, my husband and we decided that I was going to be staying at home. It was just kind of things were getting hectic and we just weren't able to soak in those early years the way that we wanted to. And I was able to, be home. But it was definitely a big change from being in the counseling field all the time to, little tiny infants who are, just have a different set of needs than sitting down and having complex conversations with people. So writing kind of became this outlet for me. I'd always journaled and things like that. Writing is just how I always processed everything.
Yes.
But then one day, God just sort of put a story on my heart, and I was like, I'm just going to see if I can write a story. And so that's really how it started for me, was just me experimenting to see if I could make that story happen on the page. And then once it was finished, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I'd gotten some feedback. That it was positive, that I did know what I was doing a little bit. Still learning, of course, but like there was a little seed of something there to work with. And so I prayed a lot about it. I'm like, Lord, I feel like it feels really scary to like pursue this journey and put my writing out in the world, but also I feel like if God gives us gifts, we're meant to share them in some way. It might look like a published book. It might look like sharing the story with my neighbor down the street. It can look many different ways, but unless I took those steps and learned and started to put it out there, then I wouldn't know. So I didn't want to be the one putting a limit on what that gift was meant for. So that's kind of when I started pursuing publication.
Very cool. And so that story that you started out writing, is that this one or something else?
That one is something else that will probably never see the light of day. It might get reworked into something. Sometimes I get that idea a little bit, but then kind of like stories come to mind and I end up pursuing other directions. But it's definitely the story that taught me a lot about writing a novel, because I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what a genre was. I was just like,
I know.
I was like, right?
What's a protagonist and an antagonist?
Exactly. And then I realized that there was such thing as genres and genre expectations for books. And I'm like, yeah, this
Uh-huh.
probably isn't ever going to see the light of day because it does not fit in any sort of normal box.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Well, that's encouraging to know that you knew about as much as I did starting out, and you now have 3 published books. So that's encouraging.
wild, which is wild to me.
Yeah. So this book, The Edge of Belonging, this was your debut novel. And was this 2021?
2020.
2020. Okay. And I guess I'm thinking because it won the Christy Award
In
in
2021.
2021.
Yeah, their
But
awards are like
a
the year after.
Okay.
So,
it's
sometimes like
for the book that's published the year prior.
right.
Okay. So what did that feel like to have your debut novel win the Christy Award?
It was probably okay. It getting published in the first place was
I know.
completely
I can't even
surreal.
imagine
And
it.
that was just it took a long, I don't know, sometimes it still hasn't sunk in all the way because it's just like, did that really just happen?
Yeah.
You know, because as writers, we can be pretty harsh on ourselves and pretty harsh critics.
That
And so
imposter syndrome is real.
it is. And so if anyone like, is affirming, it's just like, are you serious? So that was a very surreal moment. Yeah. So it was fun, and my family's very supportive. So the kids were over the moon excited, and so more than anything, more than winning the awards, celebrating that with them and sharing with them was just especially sweet for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. And not only that, then you wrote The Secret Keepers of Old Depot Grocery, which is another amazing book. If you haven't read this, you must. This one, my summer book club last year read through this book together, and everybody raved about it. Everybody loved it. Amanda joined us on Zoom and in the group, and we had a great time reading this. And then this book won the Christy Award.
It did.
It's like, you are on a hot streak, girl. And has that happened before where an author won the Christy Award for Book of the Year twice in a row?
I don't think Book
don't
of the Year
think it
twice in a
happened.
row. There's
Right.
been that authors who've won their category in a row, but
Right.
that was not
Both
something.
Book of the Year, right?
Yes, I was
Like,
not expecting.
How does it feel like that's got to be like, God, wow.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, Lord, like this is not when I started out sitting up at night while the babies were asleep to start
Yeah.
writing. This was not like anything that I ever conceived
Yeah.
my writing journey looking like. So it's a surprise to
It's
me.
amazing. and it's exciting, and it's like thrilling for me to just kind of watch your journey, and what's happening is it's really cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see the doors that I know the Lord opened that I had nothing to do with, and just seeing that play out has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm hoping that I'm going to follow you in some small way. So I'm excited. We have the same agent now. So that's pretty cool and scary. I'm at that stage of like, that's exciting, but I'm really scared now. Like, this is real.
I feel like that's kind of follows you no matter where you are in the journey. Something happens, and you're like, yes, this is cool. Oh, the next thing's kind of
like,
scary.
this is cool now,
Yeah.
it's not just something I'm doing at home in my room and, whatever, but now it's like,
Something's
okay,
happening.
like, I gotta really do this. Okay. So this is the book we want to really focus on and talk about today. He Should Have Told the Bees. And I had the privilege of it's still going. I've read it so long ago. I feel like I'm on Amanda's launch team for this book. And this book is coming out August, is it 29th?
August 29th.
August 29th. And another book. And I'm thinking there are awards in the wings for this one too. I really do. I think it was an amazing, amazing story. And for somebody like me who doesn't really care for insects, it kind of makes you like bees. I definitely look at them differently now when I see them swarming around, whatever, after reading your book. So talk a little bit about the inspiration behind this. Like, what made you write a book with bees as a central theme to it?
So I have always found bees really fascinating. I've admired them from a distance for quite some time, and kind of like, oh, it'd be so cool to be a beekeeper. But it was one of those out there dreams. And then 2020 happened. Life just changed pace, and so it kind of gave me. I started doing some research that spring, and I was just like, what if I really did do this? And my daughter had some interest in it as well. I'm like, what if we kept bees? And so I started keeping my own bees, which has been an experience, and I'm always learning something new about them. And, so one of my goals for the book, I'm like, not everybody likes bees. Some people think bees are kind of scary, intimidating, which I get, because when I open up a hive, especially those first few times I did, like, one bee is one thing, but when you have like a whole, like the force that is there in these little tiny things, it's impressive. But one of my goals for the book is like, I want to make bees a little more lovable for those who might, at least they might never open up a hive, but they can have a nice, appreciation from a distance.
Well, and not immediately just try to kill them when you see them. All right, so talk a little bit about, so obviously it's about more than bees.
Right.
So the premise of the story, and maybe was there some inspiration that came from somewhere that caused you to write this particular story that you wrote?
So yeah, I had started keeping bees, decided that I'm like, not exactly sure what the next story is going to look like, but there's going to be bees in there somewhere. And so it kind of was the initial little spark, but it's definitely about a lot more than bees. If you've read any of my books, I write a lot about family dynamics and the secrets that sometimes people keep, and how to deal with the pain that sometimes is there when past things are unfolded. And so it's about a beekeeper named Beckett who has lived a pretty sheltered life with her father on their farm where they keep bees. And everything is going pretty well for her. She's got, like, her whole system of life is just in order. And then her father passes away unexpectedly. And she finds out that the farm has been placed in a trust, and her name is on that, but there's also a name of someone she does not know who is on that trust. And so she gets to meet this young woman named Callie Peterson, she's trying to get her fledgling business off the ground. She has a natural body care business. But her mother has struggled with alcohol issues her entire upbringing. And so Callie, in a lot of ways, has been like the caregiver role for her mother. And time and time again, Callie's striving for the stability that she never had as a child. But then her mother re-enters her life asking for help, getting into rehab. And so she decides to help her, even despite the financial strain that it puts on her. But when she realizes she's named in this trust, that she could potentially sell this inheritance and have that stability, that's kind of tempting for her. But at the same time, she has no idea why she's been named on this trust and doesn't quite feel right about taking that from somebody that was Beckett's home and livelihood. So it's about two individuals trying to find out how their paths are connected and heal from some trauma of the past, and they, hopefully help each other along the way.
Yeah. And there's other side characters that bring a lot into it too. The little girl. Tell me her name again. It's escaped me.
Her real name is Fern, but she is convinced. Well, she's trying to convince others that she's a life form from another planet.
Yeah, that's kind of like how she is introduced in the very beginning. It's so creative and unique. And I won't spoil that for you because it's kind of a fun thing to find out when you're reading. But and then her uncle, tell me.
I don't want to. That's kind of, it left a little bit of a mystery for a while.
Okay, because it was so mysterious I don't even remember. So yeah,
she has a caregiver
caregiver. Good word. So, do you have a favorite character?
Oh, I think writing Fern was probably my favorite because she's so mischievous, and
is she anything like either of your children, or?
She's a little bit inspired by my daughter, who is around the same age that Fern is. Loosely inspired, because my daughter's pretty creative and has a little bit of a mischievous streak sometimes, good-naturedly mischievous, but she uses some of that creativity to stir up a little fun, and Fern definitely does that. That has that kind of inquisitive nature that brings a little lightness to a story that's got some heavy themes in there.
So you want to talk a little bit about heavy themes and maybe what your goal is? I know we want to be kind to bees, but the maybe spiritual aspect of the book and what you're hoping readers will take away.
So, we have two in this story. There's two young women who both have been impacted by traumatic experiences from their childhood, and they have similar but different experiences. But both can share the feelings of an abandonment by a mother figure in their life. And so, when these two characters meet, you have Beckett, who, for all like the way that looks on the outside, she's been very kind of sheltered and cared for, and has had a loving father on a beautiful farm. Whereas you have Callie, who's been through some really rough times. She has not had a loving caregiver. She's not had that beautiful place to live. And so, if you're looking at the two characters in a sense, you're like, okay, well, which one of these characters actually had it worse? And, even when I was writing it, part of me said, well, Becca has the easy life, has like a better start to life. But as I was working through it and thinking through it at the end, when you meet Callie, she is someone who, because her life was so difficult, it pushed her in a direction, to seek God and to seek help, like professional help with some of the issues. And so while Beckett had a really nice upbringing, she is kind of like stagnated, whereas Callie is pursuing that relationship, and she's struggling a lot, with the way that our early experiences with caregivers can impact the way that we view God. And some of those thoughts about Callie and that spiritual journey that she is on as she kind of wrestles with those things, it originated out of a mentorship relationship that I had with a young woman who did not have a stable upbringing. And we had some really deep conversations about how that can impact us when we don't have a stable upbringing. The picture that we have of God, or trusting higher power, when our parent figures in a lot of ways, as when we're little children, they are kind of like a higher power than we are as a small child. And so that went a lot into the development of the story and of Callie's character, as she's kind of wrestling through, like, I love you, God, I trust you, God, but then at the same time, I struggle, kind of like that, I believe, help my unbelief. And Callie is very much there in the story.
Well, one thing too that I appreciated about Callie's character was, even after the upbringing she did have with her mom struggling with alcohol and all the things, she still cared for her mom. She didn't just turn her back on her and walk away. That said a lot about her character.
Yeah, and I think that can be true for a lot of people who have that experience with, a character, and maybe they do walk away, or maybe they don't walk away, but there's still that inner longing for things to be made right and things to be made whole. And Callie is definitely still wrestling because she wants to help her mom, but then she's like, where's the line? Because if anyone has had a struggle with a family member who has issues with addiction, like, it can be difficult to figure out, okay, at what point am I enabling a continued pattern, or is this tough love? Am I being too tough? Am I pushing them away? And so those are some themes that are really explored through Callie's journey.
Yeah, and I will say, I know I told you this at one point before, but in this book, I could definitely see your counseling degree and experience coming to light, in how you dealt with these issues. It was very authentic.
I'm glad to hear that, because that was definitely something, as I was writing the story, it was a challenging book to write, because there were a lot of different things that I wanted to balance. And so it's encouraging to hear that.
Yeah, you did well. You did a good job with that. And I think there are a lot of things in this book that you as a reader will be able to relate to, even if you don't live the same story. Maybe you don't have a parent who struggles with alcohol, or you don't live on a farm, or you don't like bees, whatever it might be. I still encourage you to pick this book up when it comes out and read it. I think there are many other elements of the book that will really speak to you, and it's a very relevant story, I think. So nice job. So maybe you're wondering, like me, well, what is Amanda working on now? Is there something coming next? Like, what can you tell us? Anything?
I can tell you a little bit, but it releases August 2024. I haven't released the title just yet, but it's coming soon. But it's about a Tennessee girl who lives in a small town, and she kind of struggles with some rumors and scandal in that small town that is kind of interrupts her life. And a friend of hers gets her on sort of a crazy adventure to help restore this old lighthouse because her background, she grew up with a dad who had owned a construction business and restored old buildings. And so she's there not necessarily to do the work, but to oversee and make sure everything happens when it's supposed to happen. And while she's there, she finds out that the person who purchased the lighthouse has some secrets of his own and the motivation behind why he bought this lighthouse. And she finds some hidden notes from the 1940s with some secrets to unfold. So I've had a lot of fun writing it. And
Yeah, that's fun.
And now fun stuff coming soon.
And is your mind even further ahead than that on a book following that, or are you just solely focused on that?
I'm toying with some ideas, but I
Okay.
can't. They're not very fully formed yet.
Yeah.
I was laying in bed this morning thinking about this idea for a book that I have.
Because I'm finding that, like, I just sent my manuscript, I'm like, I'm not touching it again. I'm not looking at it until an editor gets their hands on it. And, like, I
let it
cannot
go.
open it. I cannot open it. And so I'm working on another one that I wrote a draft to. But then as I was updating my proposal to send back, and she said, I need a little blurb for a book 3. I'm like, what?
Already?
I'm like, oh no. And so I prayed and, thought and came up with something. And so my mind has really been thinking about that. So
Right.
like, I'm trying to work on this book, and then there's another one. And like, now I'm thinking about that one. So there's all these things that are going on at the same time.
It's hard to balance it sometimes, especially if stories become a little bit challenging. You're like, oh, maybe I'll jump over here and work on this one for a little while.
Well, sadly, we've run out of time, and I know we could sit here and talk for a long time about writing and God and faith and real life challenges. And that's one thing I think why I love your books and your writing so much is because the stories are geared to real life issues that people face, things that we can relate to and learn from through these characters, how to deal with things. And those are the stories I love to read most. And I like fun little books and, that kind of stuff too, occasionally. But what I really love is the kind of stories that you write. So keep on writing them and bring those great stories. Any last words for the readers before we wrap up?
I hope that you all have a fantastic day. Go pick up whatever the latest book is on your to be read stack and sneak some reading time in today.
Yeah. I know life gets busy. Sometimes we don't put that time in. I've tried to make it where I'll read at least a chapter a day of something. Well, make sure you follow Amanda on social media. If you're not subscribed to her newsletter, do that, because I'm sure that your newsletter subscribers get news and information about upcoming books before everybody else.
Get that sneak peek on that title of that new book and the cover design they're working on, which I haven't seen, but I'm itching to see. But if you guys go to amandacoxwrites.com, find all the ways to follow me.
Yeah. And also you have a freebie for subscribers. And it's kind of like a little prequel to the first book, The Edge of Belonging, which I really enjoyed. The childhood story of the male lead in that first book. And it's a pretty cool little story. I think we've said all things. Oh, but there's going to be a giveaway for He Should Have Told the Beast. So make sure you comment on this interview and get in the drawing for that. So we're going to wrap it up with that. Thanks so much for inviting me into this space and getting to meet you in person and spend this time talking about your books. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your interview.
Bye.